Hello, Nest family. Welcome to the show for this week. A very good week, a week after a win we thought we'd have, and one that eventuated. It was awesome, wasn't it, Drew Jones, to see the Weagles play like that and not just win, but do it with a bit of an exclamation point in the end.
It was awesome. If you had to guess which pub in Sydney I was watching the game at, thinking that there are a few pubs that actually do play football, which one would you go, Garby?
Light Brigade?
Yes, well done, in one. Yeah, very good.
It's actually an Eagles pub, believe it or not. Like, Eagles fans are known to go there in Sydney to watch games.
Well, there's probably, 3 pubs to pick from in Sydney that actually say, yes, we'll play the football. So there's not many choices. The weekend in Sydney, obviously thinking of everyone affected by the tragic events over a couple of days there. But it was nice to be able to put all of that out of our minds and watch the Eagles. And, Richmond was so depleted, but we, after a bit of a scare at the start, we played really good footy. And it was nice to sit back and watch and enjoy an Eagles game, because it doesn't feel like we've done that too often.
I want to talk about the game in a moment, right? But I want to start somewhere else. It's on the subject of Richmond, but a game from many, many years ago, 1987, and the initiative from the club to bring the inaugural players in, and then the video they put out yesterday. I reckon it's as good a piece of content as the club has ever put out. It was such a good watch. The whole initiative, which people are crediting Don Pike. I have no idea how involved he is with it, but things are starting to change at the moment in the media sense. They certainly have this season. We've been far more proactive, far more engaging, and something like that, getting them into the team meeting with the current players, showing us that. The club used to be really secretive about all that stuff in the past, and now they're opening the doors a bit more, and I just thought that was such a good watch, and I loved our players, our current day players, our young players, learning about our history, meeting those guys, and genuinely respecting them.
I think it's just so important to the fabric of the club to acknowledge what's gone before, and there's so many young guys as part of our system now. Simo talks about the changing of the way that the locker room is functioning and the young guys are taking control. It's important for them to feel like they're a part of something and to understand what's come before. So great idea. If Don Pike was at the forefront of it, that's great to hear. I haven't watched the video yet, so I'm excited to watch it because I saw you posting it on the Nest Twitter account. So that's on my to-do list. But I love that stuff. Like, I consider myself a nostalgic person, and I love the history of sport and reflecting on big events in my own life and things that have come before. So I really appreciate the Eagles that have gone down that path. And there's no doubt, as you mentioned, there's a much bigger emphasis and effort being made to connect with fans during what's a tough time on the field. So long may that continue, because we're going to get a lot of Harley Reid content going forward. So let's pump as much of that out as we can.
Well, I was going to say, it's almost as if the lid's gone off the media department this week. Like, they've tried to be as calm as they can be with Harley, and this week they've just gone like, well, what can we do? Like, he's going to play like that. He's going to be the rising star. There's been like 6 or 7 Harley Reid videos this week, including all the, Fox Footy and AFL ones, because he's the rising star. It's like everyone's just gone, all right, well, what more can we do? If he's going to play like Chris Judd, Dustin Martin reincarnated in his 5th game, how can we hold back anymore?
Yeah. Did you listen to much of him speaking, all the different engagements that he's had over the last few days?
Yeah, a fair bit. I think
he's still a kid.
He's a baby.
Still a kid, isn't he?
I look back to Nick Nananui's, first interview, and a few people actually brought up that similarity, because Harley's hands were sort of going everywhere in the interview with Kath after the game. We all remember Nick Nat's first interview. It's like a bit of Talladega Nights, Will Ferrell, what do I do with my hands kind of thing, And look what Nick Nat turned into in terms of media performer. He's as polished and engaging and funny as they are. So you got to remember, he's still a kid. It'll take time, but he's really good, and I think he's speaking really well. And we know he's not humble on the field, nor should he be when you're that talented. I think he really is off it. He's quite shy. He's a country product, and he's just loving playing footy with the Eagles, right? That's all he's about at the moment, and about trying to win us games. Like, he takes it upon himself to change games for us. The second quarter again, Now, he obviously the goal in the first quarter is big, but a couple of his bursts out of the middle, like literally transform the momentum of the football match. He's doing that in his 5th game. It's awesome.
Yeah, so there's definitely an element of he's dragging us along. Not just he can't win us a game off his own boot and off his own back. 18 years old, he's played 5 games, and it's AFL. There's 23 players who contribute, but just little things that he's doing are making such a massive difference around the stoppages. He's so smart. He's so clever with the way that he uses space. Obviously, he's strong and he's powerful, but I can't remember lately us having someone in the midfield who can release other players so well. He draws players towards him. They want to tackle him. They want to stop him. And then he is able to just use his footy smarts, his IQ and his vision to release other players. So it's not just when he's bursting through the stoppage, he's also setting up other players to be successful around the ball. And I've really enjoyed that. I said a few weeks ago that I've loved how he's used his hand and he's been unselfish around the footy. Now he's adding that extra layer where he's starting to take control of games as well. And he spoke about how in the Sydney game, that was the first time that he felt, fit enough, strong enough just to really impact for larger parts of the game. And that's just only going to get better week on week. It seems like the Eagles have managed his loads quite well, building him up a little bit, training 3 or 4 times a week instead of just once or twice. So the best is definitely yet to come. I just wanted to make this point on Harley. It has been one of the most spectacular media backflips that you will see of all time. When Matthew Lloyd said, North Melbourne should have tanked that game against the Gold Coast to get Harley Reid, blah, blah, blah. Everyone, every man and their dog, everyone was like, Eagles got to trade pick 1. They need 2 picks, blah, blah, blah. They could have McKercher and Dersma. They could have whatever. Yeah. Everyone split the pick. Don't take Harley's from Victoria. Just went on and on and on and on and on. And now everyone has completely changed their tune. Transformative player, 5 games in. West Coast a must-watch TV now. Yeah. This guy's going to be an absolute superstar. McKercher has been okay. Dersma, medium forward North Melbourne are disgusting.
Yeah.
He's obviously not going to make a big impact. They're both going to be good players, but they're not Harley Reid. Sorry. They're not even close.
They're not. And he might end up leaving, all right? Like, we don't like talking about that, but he might. I remember people talking about backflips, the Eagles will never get the same if Harley leaves in 3 years than what they could have got at the draft if they traded that pick. Where are you at on that now?
We're going to get 5 first rounders.
Does go in 3 years in return. King's ransom doesn't cover it after what he's shown in just 5 games. So the move was always the smart one, because even in that scenario that he leaves, we were always going to be compensated enormously. Whatever we get will be better than what, we could have got at a North in that draft. So, yeah, the club made the right move, and we don't want to think about that too much. We're just loving it. I know who else is loving it, and that's Elliot Yeo, because people are talking about Elliot Yeo being back to his best. I reckon Harley Reid's having a big impact on him. And the bromance, Drewy, between them, is starting to build beautifully. Like, it's commonplace in sports. The 2 best players, I'm not saying Harley's second best just yet, but the best players generally bond. They can also dislike each other. They can also, jealousy can get in the way and egos, and there could be rivalries. But more often than not, the best players generally bond because they get brought together by their brilliance and the way in which they can control any team in sport. And you can see that with Yowie and Reid right now. There's a bit of love starting to build there. And I think Harley has lifted Yoey's performance a lot, because he's playing like this and Yoey's going, well, hang on, I'm still the big bull in the midfield here. I'm going with you, son. You're not doing this all on your own. Like, I'm still going to be the main man. So it's working beautifully. And yeah, there's a little bromance. Some of the comments that have been made by both of them in regards to each other, that's just starting to bubble along nicely.
Yeah, and I would say that Kelly has been dragged along as well. His last couple of weeks, he was down the first couple, but his last few weeks have been really good. He looks a different player. And I don't know if you noted, I think in the Sydney game, that TK and Harley have got their own special sort of, high five routine, which they go through. So they're connecting as well. But Kelly there was a sort of Geelong Kelly almost. with the way he was using the ball. And yeah, he looks a different player as well. So that midfield triumvirate is really good. Like, no one's going to talk about the Eagles midfielders in terms of being one of the best in the comp, but that trio right now, in terms of being in form and playing good footy, is definitely right up there. But it's going to give Fremantle and Justin Longmuir actually something to think about. It's really good to watch, to see our players in form and confident and doing good shit.
Well, we used to at the start of the season, it was all like, okay, Kelly, Reid, Jinby, bit of Hewitt maybe. No, we didn't think Yoey would play at this level because of his injuries in recent times. Now you've got Yo, Kelly, Reid. Jinby's like your fourth banana. Like what a benefit is that? Dom Sheed, if he does come back in, I'm not sure about that. He's not in the starting on-ball brigade. Like, he's your fifth, sixth guy rolling through there. Hewitt, when he comes back, is pinch hitting. That is so good for our depth. And then we can roll through Chesser and Petrocelli for a moment and other guys just to give us a little bit of momentum and energy in there when it's needed. But all of a sudden we got a bit of depth in there. Like Ruben, we spoke about him so much at the start of last year. We're barely discussing him now, but that's actually a positive.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, if Hewitt was fit right now, it would be a really dynamic rotation, because we saw how much impact he was having at stoppage last year, like when he was fit and once he'd sort of got his wares after a few games. That St Kilda game in particular, I remember at home, which we nearly snatched. He played really well. Yeah. So there's a lot to like about some of the pieces that we've got. Obviously, there's heaps of work to do. The Sheed one's interesting. I feel like he might be subbed this week.
I don't know. Like,
someone's got to come in for Edwards, right? So
yeah, this is one of the interesting ones. I mean, and one of the benefits, I guess, we have so many options for sub this week. Like, it honestly could be any of Jermaine Jones, Andrew Gaff, although I doubt it'll be Gaffy, but it could be Gaffy. Sheed, Locke Rawlinson, who was sub 2 weeks ago. Like, does his name get thrown up on the board? Probably lower down the order, but he's mentioned. Dewar's playing really good in the waffle. Zane True's playing really well in the waffle. And then Liam Ryan could be back in the mix already. So you're talking about 5 or 6 legitimate options to come in for Luke Edwards this week. We haven't been in that position, right, for 2 years.
No. Genuine selection integrity. So what are your thoughts on Liam Ryan at half back?
Oh, I like the initiative to play in there. I definitely like it in the waffle. Like, we're opening your mind up, Liam, to how this game is. You're not just a half forward. I'm not saying I'm not sure he'll play there in the AFL. He could for periods, but I'm not sure he will, because there's a lot more to it in the AFL. But just freshening his mind up in the waffle, showing him a new position when he does play forward in the AFL, showing him about, what defenses are doing now in terms of their attack he's barely played in like 2 years, right? The game's changing all the time. The amount of run out of half back, he needs to be more aware of that all the time. That probably helps him adjust to it. He could play there. And, the signs he showed in the waffle on the weekend were excellent out of defence. You worry about defensive acumen from him because he's such a natural forward. Will he have that one-on-one discipline? But I certainly like it in terms of expanding his mind and freshening him up as he comes back into the AFL environment. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of it, and I can see why they would think, we can utilise some of his strengths at half back. Like, you look at someone, say, comparable in terms of the way you think he would play the role, like a Wanganeen Miller at St Kilda, like how damaging he is with his ball use. He's got sort of the green light to pick off those kicks. Why not? And why not do it for a half or for a quarter and see what it looks like? You can always put him back in the forward line and he becomes a threat straight away. So may as well give it a crack. He probably needs another week in the waffle, you would think, coming back from the hamstring surgery. So we're probably not going to see it in the derby. But, yeah, I like the initiative. I like the idea. And, it's a bit more complicated at the moment with our forward line, isn't it? Because we don't have Oscar, and so we're trying to balance things and make it a formidable front 50. But Fremantle are so hard to score against. Defensively, they're so solid that if Ryan was playing this week, we'd probably want to take our chances with him kicking a couple of goals up forward. So, yeah, it's a difficult balance. Having Oscar there would probably make things a bit more simple in terms of making that decision.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to pay tribute to Jake Waterman. I think I even said last week we kind of need someone to have a game out of the box and kick 5 or 6. And it was just his week and everything went his way. And I feel like it's a lot of. Do you feel like it's a really good reward for him? Like he's had to battle back from illness, and for so long it's been hard for him to lock down a spot. He's in and out, different roles. So I'm wrapped for him.
Man, it was a monster game. He took 8 contested marks.
Wild.
13 all up. Kicked 6 goals too. It was a beast of a game. And yeah, we were delighted for him because of the health battles he's gone through. And, we felt as if he's been much maligned at times, dropped unfairly on occasion. That would have been frustrating. What I'm loving about him, his marking and his leading work was great. That's obvious, is just how ridiculously fit he looks. He is running so hard. Like he covered 14 kilometers from full forward. That is unheard of nowadays. And, you're talking like late in the third quarter, okay, he's having a big game, the team's winning, the crowd's up, so you're going to have energy running through you. But he looks like he's running at 100% like late in the third term. No matter what level of sport you've played, everyone can remember that, when they've been at their fittest and how good it felt, whether it's indoor soccer on a Tuesday night or whatever it is, right? And you just had that feeling where you could just keep running and execute your skills late in games because you're just the fittest you've ever been. He looks like that at the moment. Like he is just not even thinking about anything other than attacking each contest 100% because his body's allowing him to. That is so handy for us because, with Oscar out, all of a sudden that void is diluted because Jake is playing so well. Like, can't wait to have Oscar back, but it's a bit more of an afterthought now. We've got a full forward that we're confident in.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe it takes the pressure off rushing him back from the knee. But I get the sense that Oscar wouldn't be able to do that 14 Ks right now with the way that his knee is. So we've got this full forward who's going up and back. That feels like it's always been a tool in his kit bag. But I think Will Schofield mentioned on his podcast that Waterman had given up drinking. So, little tweaks like that potentially helping him to find that extra 2 or 3% in his game. And yeah, he's absolutely shown glimpses. He's had a pretty good season today, but yeah, just blew Richmond off the park. And I can happily say, Garby, that I picked him up off the waivers in my fantasy draft league and he punched out a 148 and got me the win. So pretty satisfying from Jake the Snake. Is there anything else you want to touch on from this Richmond game? Because I've got something to throw at you about a player we might be interested in, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. Nice. But if you've got something more on this game, hit me.
There's 2 players I wanted to talk about, and they are Jack Petruccelli and Campbell Chesser. Start with Petch first. So he had a big Petch game, 16 disposals, 2 goals. Like, he's not going to do that every week, but that's the kind of performance we need out of him. It feels like he's turned the corner now. We've been hard on him before, and I think justifiably so. We could see the talent. He just wasn't getting enough of the footy. He's never going to be a 20 to 25 possession player, but he needs to be 15 to 20 more often. What he is he's just really effective now. Like, I watched Xavier O'Halloran closely at the Giants, and I really like him as a footballer. Like, he's another one who's not going to get 25 possessions, but he's that old Richmond mold of player when they were at their peak. Guys didn't get huge numbers, but when they got the football, they always made something happen. They always drove it forward. They were always clean with their hands. They either broke a tackle, knocked it on, found someone else, or drove it forward. O'Halloran does that so well for the Giants, doesn't get enough credit. Petch is starting to be that for us. Like, when you get it, just make something happen in a productive sense and an attacking sense. And he's doing that really well at the moment. I'm enjoying his game. I feel like he can maintain it more often than not now. It looks like he's turned a bit of a corner in terms of his fitness and his confidence.
Yeah, I'm loving what he's doing. Do you think he's got like a settled and simplified role potentially? Is like that? What do you think the change is for him? Maybe he's sort of, I know he's a later starter to footy, and maybe his footy IQ and acumen's improving a little bit. Like, is there a difference you can identify with him?
I think his body, he's a little bit stronger. He's fitter. He's spoken about that he's fitter now than he's been, and he can run out games a lot more rather than just providing a 10-minute burst and then being spent. That's a big part of it. The team structure looks better around him. He seems more settled in the team, like he's in the team now as opposed to being in and out. All those things are contributing. He's played a fair bit of footy now. Some guys are later bloomers. He's one of them, especially in the half-forward spot in a team that's been struggling for 2 years. So all of those things have come to the boil. And look, we've spoken about his position. Does he go to the wing? Does he go to half-back? Does he go to the midfield? He is this role. He is a half-forward who drifts up a little bit. That's his position in footy. And he can play it really well because that is what you need to be now. 15 to 20 possessions. You don't have to kick it long every time, but just drive the team forward. Be productive, be creative. Every time you get hands on the football, make something happen. He's doing that.
No doubt. I wanted to mention Brady Hoff. I think he's having a great season.
Yeah, good.
No
good
frills. Shout. No frills, but plays his role so well. Versatile. Again, he was really solid on the weekend. And just a couple of little signs. I know you want to talk about Chesser. Just a couple of little signs from Jack Williams.
Yeah.
One of the marks that he took, I know he's still a low possession player. He's still got a lot of work to do, but it feels like he's someone who's going to be in our team over the next, 5 to 7 years. And we'll be able to plug him in potentially at either end, pinch it in the ruck. Like he seems like he's got something.
Yeah. He's got a good jump and leap on him. Like it's a bit of a throwaway line sometimes, but he's a natural footballer. Like some guys aren't naturals. He's got that old school, like country footballer. The physique's still got some molding to be done. The tank needs lifting enormously. The fitness levels are not there yet. But you saw that grab he took early. That was just eyes on the footy, good leap and clunk it in a contest and then go back and kick the goal. There's something there to work with in a big way. And then, it's one of the benefits of Oscar being out and Matty Flynn being out is that he's getting a run at it. Like we need him in the team to play second ruck to give Bailey a bit of a rest. And then he gives us something different up forward. So, liking that. Hoff, great shout. He's defending so well. He is our number one defender now on the dangerous medium forward. So he did a great job on Papley against the Swans. Bolton was off the chain early. He controlled him as best you can, Shea Bolton, who always does well against us and is just a jet. What I loved about his game is you could see Dusty a couple times in the first half. They almost treated the Eagles' defence with disdain with Shea Bolton. It was like, just pop it up and Bolton will read it and run at it better than the Eagles' defence. But Hoff read it really well. He got in front of Bolton and actually attacked it and outmarked him twice in the air. And Bolton didn't get near it. And they went, okay, maybe that's not going to work. We have to mix it up. Bolton has to actually get out in the lead now against Hoff because this guy's defending really well. Wasn't that a great sign?
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, I was slightly concerned early that Shea was going to kick 27 goals and tear us a new one as he always does. But Hoff's the man now, isn't he? Like he's the man for a crisis, and in that situation, we needed him desperately.
Yeah.
Give me Chesser before I lay this on you.
So he played pretty well. Early on, there was a moment. There was a moment in the Swans game where I think he shirked a contest, and there was another one early in this one, and I went, is that his weakness? And I still think it is. It's not that he's not tough. He tackles really well. He's good in contests. We've spoken about that in traffic. I just worry. The only knock on him is, can he take a big hit? Does he just worry a little bit about taking a big hit? You don't have to be Tarzan. Like not every player in the team is Tarzan. Sometimes you need a few Janes on the outside, as is the old cliche, right? Not everyone has to be a brute. But that's one part of his game he just needs to work on a little bit, be ready to take the hit. But I thought he did really well for 3 quarters. Like his meters gained are strong. He was getting through the middle, doing what we hoped he would do when we drafted him, which is play outside, but then go through the corridor and kick long, kicked a good goal late. He's just starting to develop. He did some media this week, I saw. So the club's putting him forward and they're talking about what he's gone through. And he's just building nicely. Still a couple knocks in him. Simo's not 100% convinced just yet. But after what he's gone through, you could tell the confidence was really low and it's just starting to gain and we're starting to see signs, but there's a couple areas he just needs to improve. Be ready to take the big hit, Chess. It's going to come at some stage. Cop it, wear it and keep going because the other stuff's starting to look really solid.
You know what? I reckon it's a confidence thing for him in himself and his footy and his body. Like, I wouldn't be surprised once he starts playing consistent footy, getting his hands on the ball a lot, feeling more comfortable in the team, that I reckon that'll come with it. being able to put yourself in a vulnerable position because if you're into it, like I was a terrible footballer, but just thinking about my experience, I reckon the more comfortable you were, the more you felt sort of interwoven into the team, and the more into the game you were, I reckon there was times where that you felt more comfortable putting yourself in harm's way. I reckon it's going to come with time with Chess. He's coming from a fair way back, and he didn't have the ideal preparation. We know even going into his draft, his body's let him down. So I'm still confident it's going to happen for him. So just something I've noticed over the last few weeks evolving at the Western Bulldogs. Have you noticed Sam Darcy playing more and more time in the ruck?
Yep.
And is it just a little hint that's being dropped about, are they preparing for potentially life without Tim English, thinking that maybe Sam Darcy is going to be the man going forward who's going to carry that ruck load?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, Sam Darcy is 7'11". Like, you're going to roll him through the ruck at some stage. So maybe there's a bit too much of a read into it, but I think Darcy would roll into the ruck regardless. I guess that's the point I'm making. But
it wasn't in the team round one.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the English option is firming more and more at the minute.
It's just something Bevo's mentioned it a couple of times in his presser, like hasn't necessarily been asked the direct question, but he brings it up. He talks about, we're evolving the team. We're getting Darcy into the ruck more. We're looking at our options, getting English forward of the ball at times, but like just dropping it in there. That's just something I'd noticed.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it numerous times. I'm not bullish on getting English just because I think Flynn can be a good ruckman and we know what Bailey Williams is doing. And so do we need to spend that much of our salary cap on one player? At the same time, wouldn't complain if we get English. And the reason why I am changing on this a bit is signing Harley Reid to another contract is like as important as any agenda at the football club at the moment, right? Doesn't mean we have to push it like we spoke about last week, but it is, you got to put everything into it and make sure you leave no stone unturned. And if it means getting a guy like English or Liam Baker and paying overs to get those guys in to accelerate our development now so that Harley resigns, well, then go for it, right? Like if that all of a sudden becomes part of your strategy because this kid is just so special. So, yeah, I'm warming to that more and more. I'll never be unhappy with Tim English as a gun, of course, but yeah, go all in now if you have to, because if it gets Harley more encouraged, then hey, that's a big benefit.
Yeah, well, I think about this logically. If we're sitting down with Harley Reid and Nick Geeshan and all the big dogs are in the room, we're talking to him about, okay, we want you at this football club for the next 15 years and we want to win 3 flags with you. Here's our build. Like, here's what we want to do. And so we want to invest in the centre square where you're going to be. So we've got Matt Flynn, who can be our number 1 ruck. He can be our 50-50 ruck. We see him as a valued part of our team, good senior leader. But we've got this opportunity to go and not give away any draft capital and bring in what we see as a top 3 ruck in the competition, which is Tim English, who can also float forward. We had Dean Cox, who we think was one of the best modern day ruckmen and potentially changed the way the position is played. And we see English as someone who plays a similar role to Cox, extra midfielder, led us to a flag. Here's what we want to make this the best possible situation for you. And Tim English in the midfield and in the ruck, we see as someone who can be a huge ally for you to work with TK, to work with Yo and with Jimby and Elijah Hewitt, etc., moving into the longer term future. That to me seems like we're showing Harley that we're serious. Yeah. We're not just going to float along at the bottom of the ladder and pick up first round draft picks while he, toils away for little to no reward. It's actually, no, we're going to go get a really good player who's in his prime and try and win games of football. Like Reid spoke about this on SEN when Dwayne Russell asked him about the jumper pool, and he said, no, it was like, we're here. We're not just content to lose games. We want to win. Like, we want to be competitive. So he cares about winning. He's already shown that. Yeah. So let's match his ambition and show him we're fucking serious.
Yeah, I still think that jumper pool was a lot about showing people he's happy at the Eagles. He's not going to say that. He's not going to come out at 18 and say, I wanted to shove it up the people who said I didn't want to come here. So he had to come up with another reason. But that's a really good one too. And yeah, I love the way he spoke about that. We're not here to rebuild. Harley Reid doesn't want to rebuild. He knows how good he is. He wants to win games. He's as competitive as there is. So yeah, we probably have to be a bit more ambitious in terms of free agency now to, he changes things on and off the field at a football club. That's what special players do. So you got to change with it. So yeah, we probably have to try get a couple to keep Harley happy, if you like, and try get that contract signed. And if we don't, well, at least we say we did absolutely everything, right? That's the way you've got to approach it. In worst case scenario, you're still getting good players. So like, whatever. And we've said this a lot. The bottom out rebuild is not necessarily the only way to go. I'm not saying Hawthorn won't improve in time. I think they will. I still think they'll be a good team. But this whole notion that you have to go to ground zero to rebuild is a nonsense. You can rebuild while still bringing in free agents, while still keeping a few senior players. Maybe we kept a few too many for too long, but still keeping a core 4 or 5. You can still bring a lot of young players through while doing that. So, yeah, it's going to be a big off season for us. But right now, we're getting excited to watch our team play every week, and that includes the Derby on a Saturday night, which all of a sudden, Joey, a couple of weeks ago, we looked at it and went, oh, for goodness sakes. We're a sneaky, aren't we? Like, I don't think we'll win, but I think we could give them, like we did the Swans, a fair scare.
Yeah, I'm excited more so for this Derby than I have been for a while, which I guess is probably the case for everyone. The Darcy thing coming back is interesting. Like, if they bring him back, do they end up a little top heavy? Is that something we can take advantage of? Like, our ground ball and our contested work and our stuff around the ball has been really good. We match them in that area, maybe, overrun them a little bit if they go with the Darcy-Jackson combo. And, the fact that we're in form and playing good footy the last couple of weeks just makes me feel like we can take it up to them a bit more. And they're not blowing sides out of the water, so maybe we'll be able to hang around for a fair chunk of the game and give them a scare late. Like, they've struggled late game stuff the last couple of weeks. So it's been a while since we've had like a really good competitive Derby, so I'm pretty excited for the game.
So let's look at changes. We didn't talk about the Jamison omission, which I think was smart. I think that was, Richmond didn't have the tallest forward line, and we know the Tigers are undermanned. We should put that in as well. Like, once Jaden Short went down, I was like, no, we need to win this game. We cannot let this opportunity slip. It was another big omission on the back of Taranto, who went out after we did the pod last week. So the forward line was really short. That was a smart move. Jamison out with it. And does Jamo come back because he's been playing really well? Or do the Dockers not have enough key forward options for him to come back? It feels like he misses out again.
Well, I guess it depends how late you want to leave it to work out what the Dockers are going to do with their mix. Like, if they bring Darcy in, are they dropping Tracy? Like, how are they structuring up their forward line? Is Jackson going to go back to playing as a key forward, or is it more 50-50? Like, hard to know. But if they drop at all, do you leave it how it is, or does Jamison come in? Because the possibility you're either going to have Jackson or Darcy playing as a key forward, 200 sort of plus centimetres. Maybe it's good to have Jamo there as sort of a fail-safe. Then you can free up McGovern to play a proper interceptor role. So, yeah, it's a hard one. And then would it be at the expense of, say, Jack Williams, do you think?
Yeah. I know. I still think it's at the expense of a defender.
Okay.
But it's hard to see how he works his way in. People listening to this are probably going to listen to it after the team's announced, but we'll discuss it anyway. The Edwards replacement, as we said before, there's like 7 options. I still think Jermaine Jones is a great option for our best 22. So for me, I would pick Jermaine Jones for Edwards. And then, maybe there's another change. Maybe Marek goes back to the waffle to get a bit more game time. He hasn't played as much or been involved as much. Maybe he needs a bit more of a run and a bit more of a confidence boost. And there's a couple of changes. But JJ for Edwards seems like one for me. Who would your option be to replace Edwards?
So is Jones in the 22 or is he sub?
No, he was in the waffle team on the weekend.
No, as in, do you want him?
Yeah, no. So he's in the 22 for Edwards. Yeah, he comes in as that direct replacement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the Sheed option as sub.
So Sheed for maybe Marek. Maybe Marek gets a run in the waffle team and Sheed comes in as sub. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to see Darling sort of playing a bit decent footy on the weekend. That probably gives me a bit more confidence in the forward line if Marek was the one, to be the one to go back. But, maybe having an experienced operator like Sheed in the team, a bit of a throw at the stumps to try and win a derby, like, is that a good option? I like the versatility of Jones. Like, I always like him in the team. But Simo mentioned, he went out just due to form. After a couple of games earlier in the season. Do you think, would you like to see Jones off the halfback flank, or is he used sort of in the front half?
I think he can play wing. I'm not sold on Sheed back in yet. Like, I don't know, the youngsters are doing well. I feel like Sheed's going down the gaff path a little bit. The legs are going. Geez, it'd be tough on Gaffy if he sees Sheed come straight back in and he's still playing in the waffle. Well, that would sting a little bit, but, it is what it is. Gaffy could come back in as a sub for the derby. He's doing the right thing there. He's playing nicely. Maybe he gets a reprieve. There are a lot of options. And Dewar's been close to a debut, and I thought he looked really lively in the highlights I saw in the waffle at half forward. Maybe he's an option. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting call. Another one, Jack Darling's only 2 goals off Peter Sumich, Drewy, for the second highest goal kicker in Eagles history. Sumich 514. Yes. Darling's on 512 at the moment. That hasn't been mentioned enough in commentary at the start of the season. He could equal him come the derby. Mate, if he kicks 3, he goes past him. That's a big moment.
Yeah, I think because he had such a slow start to the year, I guess we've been talking about his form probably more in a negative light and less focus on the fact that he is going to move to second all time over. If it's not this week, then soon. And he's been a tremendous servant for the club. Let's be honest. There's been times where he's been one of the most damaging forwards in the comp. He just hasn't always been able to string it together for an entire year. But if he goes past it, it's deserved because he's been a wonderful servant for the club.
He'll do that sooner rather than later. Hopefully he does that as part of a big derby win. I think we're a chance. Tough ask. Frio's midfield's flying. They're a really good team. They've been really unlucky to not win in the last 2 weeks, but we've got some confidence flowing through us as well, and we'll have a real crack at them on Saturday night. Can't wait for it. It's been a good week for the Eagles on and off the field. Long may it continue. Bring on the derby. Thanks very much, Drewy.
On you, Garby.